Have you ever noticed that your happiest moments have come when eternity almost seemed to get inside of your soul? Time demands that you take all of your pleasures successively. And time not only gives them to you, time also takes them away. And thus, if you examine your own psychological intuitions and experiences, you will discover that your happiest moments are those when you were never conscious of time at all. When you were in school or perhaps in your office, you look at the clock. You were not enjoying the school, you were not enjoying your work. Maybe you are attending a concert or enjoying a conversation with friends. And you say, time passed like anything. The less conscious you are of the passing of time, the more you enjoy yourself. There is a hint of what heaven must be. It must be outside of time, where you can possess all joys at one and the same full moment. Well, that's the condition of happiness. But though it is outside of time, you have to use time in order to get to heaven. Now, we too often think of heaven as being way out there. We draw all kinds of pictures about heaven. Most of them are quite unreal. And because we think of heaven, and even hell, as something that happens to us at the end of time, we keep on postponing it. As a matter of fact, heaven is not way out there. Heaven is in here. If you ever want to see heaven in a child, look at that child the day of his first communion. If you want to see how much love is related to heaven, just look at a bride and groom at the altar on the day of the nuptial mass. Heaven is there. Heaven is there because love is there. I've seen heaven in a missionary nun. Yes, a missionary nun who was spending herself and being spent among the lepers. Sometimes you see a virtuous young person, and you see heaven there. The beauty of such a person is not put on the outside. It is a kind of an imprisoned loveliness that comes from within, as if it were breaking down the bars of flesh in order to find some outward utterance. So heaven is here, just as hell can be in the soul of some. It's here. That is to say, it begins here. Hence, those people who deny hell by saying, well, I believe we have hell in this life, are quite right. It starts here, but it doesn't end here. Heaven starts here, but it doesn't end here. We just get faint glimpses of it now and then. But if we postpone the thought of heaven until the moment we die, well, we will be very much like the Israelites during their wanderings in the desert. The poor Jews were at one time within about 11 days of the promised land. It took only 3 weeks for them to make the journey from Egypt to the promised land, but because of their disobediences, their failure, their backsliding, their rebellions against Moses, it took them about 40 years to get into the promised land. And that 40 years represents a pilgrimage, the life of most of us. We make progress and then we slip back. Thank heavens we have a merciful Lord who puts up with us and forgives us 70 times 7. And therefore, time is necessary in order to gain heaven. But the lapse of time itself does not bring me to heaven. What brings me to heaven is how I live, how I die. And we are not to think either that just one particular act is the sole determinant. We are determined by the habits of our life. For example, a great pianist may sit down at a piano and strike a wrong note, but you will say, oh, well, he has the habit of being a very good piano player. There are, however, so many men who try to immunize themselves from those thoughts of eternity. They put on a kind of a God-proof raincoat so that the drops of His grace will not get through to them. They shut out eternity. Now we come to what our Lord said about heaven. Oh, He said many things about it. But there is one moment in His life that I think is very precious. It was the night of the Last Supper. Here our blessed Lord gathered about Him all of His apostles, poor, weak, frail men. He washed their feet, and He was facing death, the agony in the garden, and that terrible betraying kiss of Judas, and even the denial of Peter himself. One would think that all of His thoughts would be on Himself. Certainly when we have trials, that's what we think about. And our blessed Lord, He thought about them. He saw the sadness in their faces, and He said, not trouble. Do not be sad. I go to prepare a place for you. In my Father's house, there are many mansions. How did He know about the Father's house? He came from it. That was His home. He was the kind of prodigal son who left the riches and happiness of the Father's house to come to this earth and to waste the substance of His life riotously on our salvation. Remember, too, about heaven is that heaven is social. It's a fellowship. In some places, heaven is called a country to indicate its vastness. It's called a city to suggest the number of its inhabitants. It's called a kingdom to suggest order and harmony. It's called a paradise in order to tell of its delights. And it's called the Father's house to indicate its eternity and its permanence of love and peace. Now, in order to be perfectly happy after the end of the world, we will have to have our body with us, because our body has done a great deal for the salvation of our soul. There we will meet in the fullness of the communion of saints, all of those who were our friends on earth. Husbands who have been grieved in time for the loss of the wife, find a wife. It's hard to lose friends after a time. Two hearts grow together. Death is not just separation of two hearts. It's the tearing asunder of one heart. I'm not afraid of going to hell. I'm only afraid of losing love. That's all. That's life. That's all. The reason I want to go to heaven is because I want to be loved. Oh, there will be surprises. Many of them. First of all, there will be many people there who we never expected to see there. And then there will also be a number of people absent who we thought would be there. And finally, there will be one great surprise. Greatest of all, that you and I are there. I will see you in heaven.